Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Welcome everyone to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. Man, things are heating up over on Battle of the Bits. The Winter Chip 16, that's 16, right? Yeah, I'm not very good at my Roman numerals. Winter Chip 16 is still underway, and they're up to 318 entries. Golly. It's a wonder I was never able to get on a track list over there. All right, but let's check it out. Let's take a look at some of the submissions, because it has been really sweet. Stick with us. You're listening to TCR. That's Spivel and Vav. It's a collaboration. There's two people. Now, those are your artists, Spivel and Vav. And the name of the track is Versus Mother. I like that track because it goes in a lot of different places, but it still sounds really cool. Yeah, and it looks like they're in their voting phase over on the Winter Chip 16 compilation, so there's not going to be any more submissions at this point. How much is left of the voting phase? Bear with me. 4 days. Okay, yeah. So this is one of the things I've noticed about Battle of the Bits. They've got 318 entries. And once this actually reaches like a Bandcamp release, that's going to be narrowed down to like maybe 20 or something. How many was on Winter Chip 15? Let's pop it open in Bandcamp and take a look. Yeah, Winter Chip 15 had 40 songs on it, which is, for a compilation, look, 40 songs is a ton. It's a lot. But there's the point I'm making is that there's a lot of tracks here that are not going to make the final cut, which is why this time around I wanted to just check out the submissions as opposed to waiting for the Bandcamp release. I like the Bandcamp release because at that point I can just say, hey, here's a place where you can go and download the entire album in one shot. But these days I'm enjoying all of the submissions that didn't make it or might not necessarily make it being opened up so that I can check them out. All right, that said, let's get things started. I had a quick bit I recorded on my phone last night where I embarked in the danger of possibly saying some things I typically say. But stick with me. I think it best encapsulates how this past week has been. We're going there now in TCR. CF here. This is about as close as we come to a Vancast these days. This is being recorded on Tuesday night, so tomorrow is when I put all this together. Just a recap of this past week while I'm thinking about it. There were two real games that stuck out to me. Last week, you might remember, the game of the week that kind of made the cover was Party Hard, and I talked about it for all of one sentence. Well, in the early part of the week, immediately following last week's TCR, I got into that game pretty hardcore. Didn't beat it, but I put a few hours into it. Actually, this is worth looking up because it relates to how much I spent on the bundle I got it in. Party Hard. Here it is in my Steam collection. Come on, open up. Yeah, 7.8 hours, so pretty sweet for a single game that I got in a bundle for $5. Typically, if you're not familiar, I've said it many times here on the show, good rule of thumb is if you buy a game, you get your money's worth if you get a good solid half an hour of fun. Not a half an hour of usage, but a half an hour of fun on the dollar. That's excluding any like sitting around in the menus sort of thing. And if you get an hour of fun on the dollar, then you did okay. That's a worthwhile purchase. Ergo, $5 for the bundle, and 6 plus whatever on a single game out of the bundle. I think it was a worthwhile purchase. Now that's just a guideline. It's not 100% solid law, because I've had the argument brought up again and again and again that you could have very small experiences that are worth your while, even though the runtime is not long. And I think a good example of this would be the original Metal Gear Solid, because if you started skipping the cutscenes and you are going through the game a second time, you can beat that game in like 3.5 hours. However, I would counter that by saying at that point you've gotten much more than 3.5 hours out of the original Metal Gear Solid, because you can only reach that point once you beat the game all the way through. You already know all the story, and you know where to go and all that stuff. That doesn't come like inside of an hour of play. But anyway, I'm rambling. So Party Hard, pretty decent stealth game. Okay, so I didn't think I was not holding out a lot of hope that it was going to be awesome. I thought it was going to be okay. The concept, at least that I was told, was, hey, you've played a game like this before, so if you like these stealth games, you'll dig it. And I would say that's, I guess that's fair. It seemed very difficult at first, but the more I played it, the more I could see cracks in the AI, and that made it much easier, which is a little depressing. That's what I would say is a good, solid con when it comes to Party Hard. Didn't get easier because I was practiced or because... Oh, hey, what do we got? There we go. Didn't get easier because I was well practiced or any of that stuff. It's just that I found out exactly how far away you had to be from the enemies for them to not see you. And then essentially I was able to just kill people right out in the open, as long as I knew, the right angle and stuff like that. So at that point, it feels more like feels more like gaming the engine rather than playing the game. I don't know how else to explain it because I'm really tired right now. It's almost 10 o'clock. That was the first half of the week, was this Party Hard game. Good game. I like it. If you find it on sale, it's definitely worth your time. I think aesthetically it takes a lot from Hotline Miami, but gameplay-wise, nothing like it, so don't be confused. It is also worth noting that there's a pretty sweet level editor in it and a workshop, and I will always have a solid affection for workshop games with a level editor. I played with it a little bit, but not much. Played a couple levels off of the workshop, which was pretty cool. Started tinkering on my own level. As far as level builders go, this is more like an Excitebike type level builder or a Jetpack type level builder. And by that I mean you can build a level very quickly. It doesn't have to be complicated. But if you really want to spend the time, you can craft something really nice. Simple tools, but they can do a good bit. Best kind of level builder, in my personal opinion. So yeah, I built a little derpy level, but I was able to play a couple that were, pretty fun to sneak around in. So that was the first half of the week. Second half of the week, I shifted gears and started playing Blood Sports TV a ton. I've been playing that game daily now. Blood Sports TV, yeah, man, it's a good game. Everything I hate about Dota and League of Legends. With the exception of it's not competitive, so you can just chill out and fight the oncoming hordes. It reminds me a lot of Killing Floor, actually. Co-op game, 2 or 3 people, and then just fight the waves of enemies. It's not a first-person shooter like Killing Floor is, but what's funny is that this whole Dota format, Killing Floor actually made a game called Killing Floor Calamity, which attempted to take that sort of hero defense and put it in like a League of Legends type format, like point of view. That was an Ouya title. I think it's still around if you get it on like Google Play or something, but didn't do it very well. Didn't make that jump very well. Blood Sports does it much better. So yeah, that's been pretty cool, man. I'm lucky in that I have a few pals who play it on the regular, so I don't have to deal with, the dead multiplayer community. Another game like Guncraft, where it's like, oh man, I love this game, but nobody else plays it, so I'm like struggling to try and get an online game going. So that has made it that much more enjoyable, and that's pretty much been my week in gaming. Is Party Hard and Blood Sports and the occasional idle game, because let's be honest, I still like my idle games. Back again in the studio, and while we're at it, quick shout out to EmeraldRangers.com, who has just picked up the show to their podcast network. EmeraldRangers.com, this is the first week that I'll be available over on that website, which is pretty awesome. So my hat's off to Sendu and his pals, because they've made something cool. All right, just for fun, let's check out one of the meme tracks over from Battle of the Bits. What kills me about that is that first of all, that's a collaboration. That's Cleater, who's like one of the biggest names on that website. Cleater and BOTA, just derping around in Mario Paint. All right, let's play a real track. See, I've been editing here. This track is entirely missing. I don't know what happened, but it seemed fine at first, but inputting a raw MIDI file into Audacity didn't seem to work out. Looked like it was going to, but then about 20 minutes in, I started crashing really hard, so I decided to generate a sample wave output of the show, and it just ended up being 3 minutes of silence. So in favor of getting things done, I cut it out entirely. All right, back to the show. Okay, first of all, that was imported as a raw MIDI file, which I didn't know how Audacity was going to handle that, but it seemed to interpret it just fine. What's weird, though, is in Audacity, typically you're looking at a waveform, when you're looking at your recorded material. I almost said retarded material. Which I guess applies in this case. The grid pattern we see here for how it interprets raw MIDI files is something I've never seen before. I can mute the individual channels, which is pretty neat. Yeah, I like it. I did not know that Audacity was equipped to handle those types of files, but yeah, it seems to work okay. So that's Zenzuka, Blue Nocturne, and Damn It Fortune and Snowflakes. Excuse me, no, Snowflake, Starlight, and Starbits is the name of the track. It's a collaboration between three people, and they gave it a three-person, a three-word name. Yeah, there's gonna be a link to that one, but that is Song that has been listened to with ear satellites. Oh boy. Yeah, every time I make Audacity do something, it's starting to chug. This might be the last time I import raw MIDI data. Oh boy. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. This is the part of the show I like to tip my hat to the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. And to these individuals, I read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Eric Controller. Thank you guys so much for keeping the lights on, and I hope you're enjoying the party. Alright, what do we have next here? Alright, considering how badly that last track was botched and I had to pull it out, let's do another track from Winter Chip 16. This is She Stole My Cat from Pator. And this is, in my opinion, this is a perfect example of an awesome track that is probably not going to end up on the track list because it doesn't get enough shine. But let's take a listen. Tell me what you think. You're listening to TCR. Stick with us. Link to that track's going to be in the description. If you got a second, head over and get yourself a copy of that MP3 and tell that guy that his track is awesome. Because I think that's probably my favorite of the Winter Chip 16 tracks that I've heard thus far. Alright, boys and girls, let's shift gears, do the fail bag. It's a small show, it's just you and me and that's it, and whatever you got to say, we can have a back and forth. So if you know me personally, feel free to write me an email. Otherwise, the best way to do it is probably to head over to YouTube and leave a comment there. And also, wherever this goes up on Emerald Rangers. This being the first episode, I have no previous comments from there, but if you're interacting on emeraldrangers.com, then I'll read it here. But over on YouTube, we got a few comments, so let's turn back the clock just a wee bit to last week. And Mecha Menace reaches out to us first. And by the way, Mecha Menace raised the question last week, what would we do if there was 100+ comments? And I don't know. Here's hoping with the Emerald Rangers thing that we can make that happen. But here we go. He says at 34 minutes in, Papram is built using custom hardware in each cartridge. It could be emulated like how eventually all those FX chips in certain SNES games were. But I could also see those hackers being sued. I'm not sure how much of the gameplay code was built around that hardware, or if it's an abstract layer on top of that that can be ported to other platforms. I don't know if I would recommend looking up gameplay if you can not easily put something out of sight, out of mind. It's impressive. It's like the Nazca Neo Geo game running on a Sega Genesis with lots of replay value, multiple run-throughs with different paths, different characters, and secrets. I also believe the cart is updatable, so new features and fixes could improve the initial cart or something. Something that they would have to release as a super mega hit TE Value Pack Classic Series version in a cardboard slide box back in the day. Also, you make playing the outro tune sound like it's a process of timing and the song like a DJ giving the talk up in real time. Can't you just lay in the track afterwards with it, whatever words you say at the end? Yes, that's true. But the problem is when when I'm turning the show off in the last couple weeks, it's been like minutes before the show has to go up. So there isn't time to do that type of editing. That's the problem. And you're right, it's the easiest thing in the world to just dig up the file and drop it in. It's just I've been cutting it that close with TCR that it's been an issue. And it is the dumbest thing in the world. It really is. I said this in text too, but just so that we discussed it on the air about this Paprium game. See what I said? It doesn't have to be a ROM. They were able to make Pure Solar a Steam game and whatnot. That works too. I just need a cost-effective way to play it, which is true. That's how I feel about it. So let's see his response. Are you suggesting a non-custom hardware cartridge? From what I know of the game, it relies on that. Could it be overhauled in those features relying on the hardware removed? Maybe, but it wouldn't be the same game. The sounds like a lot of work, especially if the logic that game runs on is particularly entrenched in custom hardware. That's not common practice in professional gaming these days, though. It still seems like the platform exclusives take advantage of very specific code to make things better than if they were building a game that runs on multiple platforms. Workaround measures and possible redesigns of the game might be needed. It wouldn't be the same game then. I don't know. Time will tell. Time will tell. If they developed it from the very beginning to be on multiple platforms, then they could jump over those types of technology gaps surprisingly easily. Yes, you're right. If it's using custom hardware, then in order to also make a PC port, there would be some deep structural changes. But again, if that was the plan from the beginning, you could plot out a project like that and just parallel develop them without too much trouble. It just depends on them. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. You got a lot of real deep technology questions there that when it comes to these old hardware games, old hardware / new hardware, I don't know. Don't know the answer. We'll see. But it's good to hear from you. Thanks for checking in, man. Hemrock says, thanks for the show and thanks for the Battle of the Bit links. I'm rooting for you. Much appreciated, Hemrock. Good to hear from you as well. Yeah, I put up the links so you can get the tunes. Even that link that had to be for the track that had to be cut out because it was just like a raw MIDI file. That's going to be in the show notes this week as well. So if you want to actually hear what that sounds like, you can follow it up and figure it out. You know, with more time, I'm sure I could have got that in there. But again, it's already Wednesday. It's 9:00 in the morning, and this show should be finished by now. So I got to do what I got to do to make it happen. Desm101 writes, I still love Stunt Race FX, even with the bad frame rate. Lol, I would love to see an SA1 hack, or just a new updated version. I love that art style. It reminds me of when I was still fond of Nintendo games. I responded to him in text, but just to lay it out here, I really loved Stunt Race FX as a kid. It was an amazing game that, as I said here, way ahead of its time. Stunt Race FX has the aesthetic that you see a little bit more developed in like the later Mario Kart games with like the 3D racing, but in a cartoony style. Very Nintendo. It was a very Nintendo kind of game. And I played it when I was young, like when it came out, but then I also revisited it when I was like 18. And now I'm in my 30s. So yeah, it's been almost 20 years since I revisited it as an adult, as a young adult. So now I feel like I have to go back and play it again. But I also think it's worth mentioning, for what it's worth anyway, when I revisited it back in the day, I did so by getting a copy of the cartridge. So it's not like I revisited it with emulation problems or something, because I was aware at the time how emulation wasn't perfect, and if I grabbed a ROM, especially a ROM of a 3D game, 20 years ago, and it ran in a really bad frame rate, my knee-jerk reaction wouldn't be, wow, this game sucks. It would be, wow, this game isn't emulated very well, or something. I guess the only way to play it is on a cartridge. And I think that's how this game played. It played like a game that wasn't emulated very well, which is very weird. But I should go back and try it again. I mean, I've played and enjoyed a lot of really old and broken games since then, so I would probably like it now. Yeah, I kind of want to play Stunt Race FX again. Isn't that weird? Desm, man. Desm, it's been almost a year since you released the Searcher EP. What, you think you'll ever do another one? That would be cool, man. Let's see. Paul Messier did his Vanguard's Kickstarter that eventually got canceled. The game is still around, but he must gather his party before venturing forth, so to speak. So we got a couple of comments on the Vanguard's video for somebody who didn't care much for it. One guy said it had all the red flags of a Kickstarter disaster. Don't know if I would agree with that per se. As a matter of fact, that was one of the things that drew me to it, because it's a game that's made by a guy who loves games, as opposed to like a smooth talking pitch salesman. He's just a guy. But I don't know. We'll see what happens when he relaunches that Kickstarter, whenever that would be. In the meantime, if you got Tabletop Simulator, that game's still around. You can still, he didn't pull the Tabletop Simulator version or anything. You can still go get it and play it for free. What else we got? Mecha Menace chimes back in. This was in Cathedral 3D, which is another one I got from the bundle with Party Hard. He says, do the townsfolk jump? Makes me wonder if you could place the box on the top of a spire or a column for safekeeping. The look of the game is neat. It's super high-res pixels, like they have the resolution, but only scale certain textures while packing in more pixels for other things like the hands. And I just explained to him, they don't jump, but they do shoot arrows. So every time I've tried to stash the box and work that way, it doesn't work. They shoot the box, and I die rather quickly. As far as I know, the game is designed, you have to pick up the box and run with it. And he responds, maybe you can find a nook bordered on the sides facing the perimeter of the cathedral, leaving the sides facing inside where there's a bunch of platforms too low to attack the heart. Once you find that nook, the game will be boring. Yes, you're right. That would be game-breaking. Also, it's independently developed enough and played seldom enough that a bug like that might actually exist and be not yet discovered. I just found, and I haven't found a safe place to hole up either. The best tactic I have in this Cathedral 3D game is you find a really long hall on the left or right sides of the cathedral, and you run all the way down that hall. So what happens is, while you're running down the hall, the crowd of enemies funnels into the hall behind you, and you have to kind of serpentine so you don't get hit with arrows. Once you reach the end, you spin around, and then all of the enemies are in a straight line, and you just unload that burner that you have, and you burn them down. That's what I've been the most successful with, anyway. That's how I got on the leaderboard, which, by the way, I don't know what spot I'm on the leaderboard anymore. I have to double check that, because I dropped like 30 spots in a couple of nights, which is actually still not that bad at all. But yeah, Cathedral 3D is a good game. Drybone Bro 546 left a comment on these strange handheld pocket game player videos. Said, I own one of these, and it's honestly pretty cool. My favorite of the games when I was a toddler were A, B, C, and G. Sadly, I still can't beat the boss for A because I don't know how to. It's so funny that people seem to really like that video. It's just like a little, almost like a knockoff of a Tiger Electronic game, like a knockoff of a knockoff. And my father-in-law was like, hey, I had this on my desk. I know you make game videos. See if you can make a video out of that. Lo and behold, that ended up being one that's consistently commented on over the years. And finally, we got one from our good buddy Sendu over at Light Studios from EmeraldRangers.com. He left one on the episode from 2 weeks ago. The litmus test, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And he says, Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? No, that did not come from me. I'm guessing you always think of me when it comes to Sega Genesis. Yeah, I do, and there's a couple reasons for that. When I was younger, and my oldest son was tiny, okay, I told him, okay, when you turn 4, you can have my Sega Genesis. It'll be yours. Every kid needs a system that's, that'll be yours. And I said this on the air a lot. And when I said it on the air, a number of Sega games came my way, from you in particular. I have a number of games that you gave me, and then on top of that, there was also, like, long before that even, there was Fatal Labyrinth, which came from you. And yeah, that's probably why when I have a Sega game and I don't remember where it came from, I'm usually like, did Sendu give this to me? Did you, what I don't know. Because you did, right? You gave me a bunch of Sega games. You gave me, like, Vector Man and stuff like that, I'm sure. I'm not crazy, right? Please don't tell me that you never gave me a Sega game, because I'll lose it. That can't be true. No, because I got into Sega Repros because of you. Because you gave me the Wily Wars and Metal Sonic and stuff like that. Yeah, you're my Sega guy, man. You were definitely the Genesis ambassador of the group. That does leave a question of where did my Carmen Sandiego cartridge come from, and I do not know, because I don't remember ever purchasing a Carmen Sandiego cartridge. Somebody gave that to me. Maybe it didn't come from the mail. Maybe somebody, like, gave it to me locally, or actually, now that I think about it, maybe it was, like, from the thrift store or something. I don't know. I have no idea where that cartridge came from. It's not a great game on the Sega Genesis, and now that I'm older, oh yeah, that's right, I was talking about my son. Yeah, how I was going to give him the Sega Genesis, and when he got older, and now he's 11, I sat down with him and talked to him about this, and he was like, the Genesis doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's a rude awakening as a parent. The kids, they're not going to be... the stuff that means stuff to us is not going to be the same stuff that means stuff to them. Not always, anyway. Sometimes it will be, but so that was the thing. So yeah, I sat him down and I was like, yeah, this is the Genesis, this is the collection. And I told him, yeah, man, people sent me some games knowing that I was going to pass this on to you. And he was like, I don't know, I'm not interested. I'm sorry. He's a good kid. He was honest. I like that better than him just saying, yeah, okay, and then just putting it on the shelf and never touching it or caring about it. Because to be honest, that's what I would have done. I didn't like disappointing anyone when I was young, so I probably would have just been like, okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for thinking of me, Dad. Well, hey, that's the end of the Failbag, and we're only halfway through the show, so let's read a couple of opinions randomly on the internet. This is the way I did it back, 11 years ago when TCR started. Nobody was right into the show because we were brand new, so I just said, hey, the Failbag, I'm going to go to the internet and I'm going to read some forum posts, but I'll read them as if they were written into the show and just respond accordingly. All right, so here we go. Dear TCR, they made Doom reboots, are making big money, but nobody really cares about Quake Champions. So since the new Quake is inevitable, what do you think the new game should do to be good? Wow, that's a good question. There's a few things that the original Quake had that made it still good over the years, and I think those things have to be present in a Quake reboot in order for it to be good. A big one is the architecture, which everyone says Lovecraftian. There's the castles, The Quake architecture and palette in the first game were like a signature thing. There's no way they can get that right, in my opinion. And it's weird because when I play Quake, when I play like user-made mods, people get it right all the time. So I don't know. Play Cathedral 3D. A lot of points and arcs and that kind of thing. That would be a good Quake level, in my opinion. No way they're going to get that right. They just can't do it. That and the pace. The enemies should be, I want to say fairly squishy, but a ton of them. Yeah, I don't know. I think they could do it. But it would also have to be. It would have to be alive in the multiplayer department. So there'd have to be some sort of innovation to keep people playing multiplayer, just shooting, rooting and tooting and shooting. Whether that be making it so that custom levels would be nice and easy to play, making it so that it would be nice and easy to make custom levels, maybe tournament incentives. I don't know. There's just a few things. I'm not holding out hope. I don't think it's going to be anything. I think the new Quake is Quake Champions, but it is a good exercise in thought what a Quake reboot would look like. I think Trent Reznor would have to be a part of it because everybody would make a stink about him not being on board if they made a Quake without him. At least I'd like to think everybody would make a stink about it. Actually, thinking about it now, nobody would probably care. Somebody followed up to that with, why do people dislike 2 and 4? I think people disliked 2 because of the backtracking. Because I remember people say now, looking back on Quake 2, that it was so different from the first game. And it was. That's true. But I remember when it came out, people didn't really seem to care that the weapons were different and that sort of thing. It's really just the backtracking is the thing that consistently gets brought up. Backtracking in the maze-like levels and having to backtrack through entire levels and whatnot. I don't remember ever really getting lost in the first Quake. I know it happened a couple times, but I never got game-breakingly lost in the first game. As for 4, I played 4 all of one time for all of 10 minutes, so I can't really comment on it. I think 4 is the feeling of 4 is that's what we'll get if they rebuild Quake, and they don't get it right. just another hollow shooter that could be. Doesn't have to be called Quake. Nothing in it shouts Quake. It's just some shooter. Here's another one. Dear TCR, if the game series has more than 4 games, at least one of them is bound to be bad. Prove me wrong. Somebody follows up, I can't because all franchises go up to a number where they get bad. I don't know. Anything... Okay, first of all, I can only think of a handful of games franchises that have more than 4. I know there's a lot of them, but I can only think off the top of my head of a few. So what are the most beloved franchises out there? Mario? Are there any straight up bad Mario games? Excluding Hotel Mario? Because people don't consider that canon. I don't know. I would say so. I couldn't really get anywhere in Mario Galaxy. I know people love that game, but I couldn't bear to play with the separated Wii controls. Even my beloved Resident Evil has had a couple stinkers in there. I mean, if you include spin-off games like Survivor and stuff like that, then for sure. But I think that's just the nature of sequels. They make them until they stop making money anymore, and then they don't make them for a while. And just that's the way it is. If you're reaching a 5th game, then it's just what happens. What about Final Fantasy? Does Final Fantasy have any truly bad games in that series? I don't know. I haven't been a huge Final Fantasy guy over the years. I like Final Fantasy, but I'm just not a huge RPG guy. So I wouldn't be able to tell you if there are or there aren't. Maybe if you counted like some of the Game Boy games, but the only one I played is Game Boy. On Game Boy is Final Fantasy Legends 3, which is an amazing game. I love that game. So I don't know. And even if let's say there wasn't a bad Final Fantasy game, that would be an outlier. You could still say, for the most part, 4 sequels or more, one of them's bound to be bad. I don't know. That is a thought, a good thought experiment. Try and think of a franchise that has more than 4 games, so 5+. And if you can think of a franchise with 5+ games and not one of them is bad, and I'm not saying that they all have to be excellent, because it doesn't say one of them is going to be disappointing, because that's a gimme. You're going to have a disappointing game. Saying one of them is bound to be bad. Like, I'm not sure if Mario has a bad game in it. There are some games that were disappointing for sure, but I don't know about bad. I don't know. Think about it. Let me know what you think. Here's one. Hey, CF. I've been trying the original Zork. how are you supposed to map this game? The areas aren't arranged in a logical order. For example, if you keep walking forward in the forest, you find yourself back where you started. Or you're in a room and exiting the other direction takes you to the same place, but sometimes it doesn't, depending on the room. Somebody responds to that with, "That's why it's your greatest challenge." All right, so here's the deal. When you're mapping a text adventure, okay, so let's say you're in a starting room, whatever that room may be. And when I use the word room, I'm talking about location. So it could be outside, it could be whatever. There's exits to the north and to the east. You got to put a line, a little stick north and east on your square on your map. Now, when you go north, it is a mistake to draw the next room directly above the room you were just in, the north room you were in, because it doesn't say the room is north. It says there is an exit to the north. All right? For the most part. That's the way you have to look at it logically anyway. So once you have moved north, then you have to look again to see where the exits are. Is there an exit south? Is that where you just were? Then you can draw the room right above it. Is that exit now to the west? Then you would draw it, just above it and to the left a little bit, and then there would be like a curvy line, or I guess it'd be to the right, a curvy line connecting the two. That's the way Zork is. It's not drawn in a linear fashion. As a matter of fact, the original Zork takes place. There's a house, and then there's a forest area that surrounds the house. And you can see this if you go onto like Google and look up maps of the original Zork. There's a couple nodes in the middle for the house, and then there's a ring around it for the forest. That's the way it's drawn, and that method is important because of one of the common text adventure challenges, called mazes. And they called them mazes not because it was traditional, you gotta go left and then you gotta go up and you draw it like you would think of as a conventional maze. No, they draw it because it's a few simple rooms and the exits are just like totally broken. You go to the north, but it takes you back down to the west end of 2 rooms away. And the exits are just tangled up. So you have to figure out how many nodes there are. You just draw out the nodes on a separate piece of paper. And then you have to determine, okay, so this maze consists of 3 rooms. We'll call them room 1, room 2, and room 3. So you draw 3 separate nodes for room 1, 2, and 3. And then you have to determine, okay, so if I'm in room 2 and I go left, what happens? Did it put me to room 1 where I just came from? Or did it put me in room 3? Or did I leave the maze? Or, a very popular answer, did it put me back in the same room? Because that's usually what you'll see. You'll have 3 rooms, and each room will have 4 exits. And most of those exits in each room will take you back to the same room. I mean, we even saw that in the first Zelda game. Remember there's that one, like, up, down, left, right, whatever puzzle to get into, I can't even remember what it opens up. One of the levels, I believe. Yeah, and you might run into that, and all 3 of the rooms are, given the same description, just to make it even more awful. And the way you would solve it then is by going through your inventory, and you would drop a few items. All right, so you have who knows however many amount of rooms, and you're stuck in a maze. Great, let's save. Well, you got like 5 or 6 different items in your inventory. So you've saved. Let's drop your sword here. Then we'll move to the next room that has the same description. Now drop your, I don't know, whatever, treasures. In the next room, drop all the things except for your lantern, so that as you rotate through the rooms, you can now tell this is room 1 because it says there's a sword here. This is room 2 because it says there's a bearskin rug here, whatever. And then you can mark the rooms with your own items. So then you draw your map and you figure out how the rooms are connected in that way. Then you reload your original save file with all your items back in your inventory, and you can use your map to get through it. What you're talking about here, how you do this map, this was the fun of the original Zork. This is what, I mean, that's what the gameplay was. Because without that, it's literally just, typing, just do into a parser. I mean, this is the reason why young people will look at Zork and be like, I don't know how this is supposed to be fun. And old people will look at Zork and they'll think, wow, I remember exploring the dungeons and just having a great time in my imagination, seeing everything. Don't give up on that. Work on that, please, because I promise there's real fun to be had there. I'm not saying Zork is a perfect game. There's a lot of problems with the original Zork. But that's the answer to your question, how you're supposed to do mapping. Slowly and carefully. And when you die or something happens that you realize that you didn't get the score you were supposed to get, or you're able to soft lock yourself in a lot of those old games, you can restart it easily because you have your map. That's why they were done that way. All right, enough gushing about Zork. All right, here's an inflammatory one you might enjoy. Dear CF, why do N64 nostalgia friends continue to pretend that GoldenEye has aged well, or that Mario 64 is the best 3D platformer, or that Ocarina of Time is the best game ever? Okay. So a couple of things. I don't think the Nintendo 64 has aged well. I think that you said nostalgia right there in your post. You can think the worst things are awesome if they hit you, if you're introduced to them at a time when you're young and impressionable. Look at the games that I like on MS-DOS, right? Beast is a terrible game. It's a bad game, but that's what we had. that's it. So that's the case with the Nintendo 64. It was breaking new ground. Tried some new things with the controller that some people liked and some people hated. GoldenEye, love it or hate it, was a huge deal. It was a huge deal because it was a split-screen multiplayer, 4 ways, pre-Halo, that you could do without having to get some sort of a multi-tap, because the 64 just like natively had 4 controller ports. So it was the first time that kind of thing had been made plainly available. And you got to remember, at that time, everybody knew what multiplayer first-person shooters were, but very few people could actually do them. Because it wasn't as widely prevalent at that time to just jump on GameSpy and play a multiplayer game. That came right around that time. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It just it brought that world to a lot of people, and that's why people think it aged well. For those people, GoldenEye is frozen in time, and they'll never see a flaw with it. But I've got issues with it for sure. I still enjoy it, but I came across Perfect Dark when I was exploring the N64, and I don't think it was bad. It's just that even in like a modern game, I have difficulty picking up a controller and playing an FPS game. But those games are like very slow paced, truth be told. But I don't know, nostalgia, man. There's nothing wrong with Mario 64 either. Mario 64 is a great platformer. I don't know what the best 3D platformer is because I don't care much for 3D platformers anymore. And I never played all the way through Ocarina of Time. It just sounds like this comment sounds like a young person making fun of older people liking what they like, which is funny to me because I always looked at the Nintendo 64 as like the hallmark of a younger gamer. The younger gamers were nostalgic over the N64, where I was nostalgic over the original Nintendo. It's very weird that now even those people are getting made fun of for liking what they like. All right, here's another one. Hey, CF, is DOSBox still the best way to play DOS games in 2021? I gotta say, I'm with the camp that says yes, and this is something that has kind of been split in the very small DOS community. Some people like DOSBox, and some people say, get your hands on an old computer, and nothing beats it. Let me say, the old computer camp, my hat is off to you folks, because you're probably right. I mean, I can't imagine anything playing more fluid. Like if you're going to play, I don't know, if you're going to play Space Quest 5 or something, old CRT monitor, old everything, old computer, and those old keyboards. Oh my gosh, people talk about mechanical keyboards now, right? The clickety-clack of a mechanical keyboard versus the smushity smush of a membrane keyboard. try using a mechanical keyboard from like 1989. That thing could be heard throughout the house. Boom, 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 boom. The big like mechanical chonk plonk of mashing the space bar on my dad's 386 keyboard was something that I'll never experience quite the same way again. That would be pretty sweet. Because that's the way these games were experienced. I get to do that, pre-COVID once a year at MagFest. And I looked recently into, rebuilding one of these machines. I don't know. It didn't seem prohibitively expensive. I mean, it's a little expensive. You're building a computer. But it's a lot for DOS games. It's like it's going to be enough money that I couldn't justify doing all that just for DOS games. I love my DOS games, but they don't dominate that much of my time for me to buy a big piece of equipment. So maybe under that logic, the basic machine is building the machine is the best, but DOSBox is the most attainable. I know if you're going to use your current like modern day computer and play old DOS games, DOSBox hasn't been beat yet, and it can do nearly everything. Nearly everything. The only game that I have trouble with on DOSBox right now is Adventure Construction Set because it has disk swapping. Supposedly there's a way to do it, but I haven't been able to make it work yet. All right, see. All right, boys and girls.